California Governor Gavin Newsom is on the short list, apparently, to run for president on the presidential ticket for Democrats in 2028. He just started a podcast and invited on controversial MAGA Republicans like Steve Bannon. Take a look.
This is part of the process to unwind you from being a globalist to make you a populist nationalist. It's a long journey. It's a long journey. It's a long journey, but I think you'll get there.
This is part of the deprogramming, is it?
I think that's a lesson that we learned after President Trump. And look, you know, we disagree on this, but President Trump won the 2020 election. It was really Bernie Sanders and Pocahontas that was going to be the
Senator Warren.
Elizabeth Warren is going to be Pocahontas, we call it.
So some call this a smart political move for him, but he's also taking a little heat from Democrats and Republicans like former Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Take a look.
Bannon is the one that has basically authored where we are and what Donald Trump wants. And because Gavin Newsom wants to run for president and thinks he's going to be this healer, he brings on this nationalist. Many of us on the right sacrificed our careers taking these people on, and Newsom's trying to make a career with them.
Every politician starts a podcast right before they launch their next campaign. Looking at you, Gavin.
So, just as a clear up for that, because after the 2016 election, at least 1,000 podcasts were launched. Many, and they say many by liberals, according to Vice News. Pod Save America, hosted by former aides to Obama, were the first breakout podcasts in 2021. So let's be clear. Podcasts have been around a long time, and they don't belong to anybody. They belong to everybody. So I just wanted to make that clear, because I know Jesse likes to always, be clear about what went on, and I wanted him to know that this is not the purview of just the Republicans. This is the purview of politics these days. So is a podcast a good way to reach the other side, or is it giving a big, sound thing for the other side to talk about where they're at?
Well, I'm sure a podcast offers a great platform to have a conversation, but I don't think Governor Newsom hit the right tone on this. I'm all for sitting down with people. I say over and over at this table, you got to have the conversations, even with the difficult people. But there was no pushback on some things when we talked about, he said, we disagree on who won the election. Factually, that was a moment where you say, no, there's been zero proof, or let him hang himself and push back and say, so when you say that, what do you mean? And make him explain to the listeners how he gets there, because then they've heard enough, And when you've talked about Senator Warren and calling her Pocahontas, he kind of chuckled and then went back. There's got to be a base level of entry for these kind of conversations. And I would advise Governor Newsom to maybe watch a Pete Buttigieg or someone that goes on Fox all the time. Alyssa sits at this table and you watch her on CNN. She pushes back on people she vehemently disagrees with, but it never gets personal. It doesn't go into attack mode. And here, the part that bothers me is he's not trying to reach across the aisle to have a conversation or push back. He's trying to be friends. And that's not what anyone's looking for.
Well, just to disagree a little bit, because I agree with you that he should have countered. The Pocahontas thing is just stupid. And by the way, there's such snowflakes on the right. If you say anything about them, they're going to the lawyers in 2 seconds, But he can call people any names he wants. But what I would say is that I bet you anything that this podcast is listened by Newsom's fans, by liberals. And so they know he's lying. They know he's full of it.
Which one of them?
Bannon.
Oh, okay.
They know it.
I just wanted to,
No, that's right. Thank you for clarifying. Because Bannon he's out there saying that Trump won the election. We know he didn't win the election, and people who are listening know that.
Go on record and make him explain himself. He said, we disagree. We don't disagree. There's a fact-based research here. This isn't an opinion. So make him tell people. So when you say we disagree, how did you get to that?
And by the way, I watched the whole thing. Bannon is another one who never met a period at the end of a sentence that he liked. He's from the Kellyanne Conway School of Discourse. No commas, no periods. Just keep talking and shut the other person out. That's what I don't like.
I just think this is a poor strategy for Gavin Newsom. I actually did think that he was one of the leaders that would come out in terms of 2028. I remember watching his annual State of the Union address in California, and he criticized Republicans, and he promoted California as an antidote to the poisonous populism of the right. Now he has a Steve Bannon on the show who's saying, you know, you're going to get to populism. There's a long road. He gives zero pushback there. He gives zero pushback, as Sarah pointed out, to really what is a slur against Senator Warren, a sitting senator. He gives a platform and normalizes, in my view, an election denier and someone who is the person who is behind Project 2025. And I believe that, you know, if you are going to be a public servant, you better be unapologetically authentic, because voters can sniff out inauthenticity in a second. And I thought that that was one of the most inauthentic things I have seen Gavin Newsom do.
Wow.
I'm terribly,
so you don't believe in the let them hang themselves theory?
No, I'm terribly disappointed. I think you meet energy with energy. And what he did was he showed his pretty white teeth and his cute face and did nothing other than that. And I think it's despicable.
So I'm intrigued by this. I would agree that I don't really get not fact-checking, just blatant factual errors. But the conversation around platforming and normalizing, I kind of think is moot at this point. Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, who we also had on, they have on their respective channels way more listeners already than Steve Bannon's podcast, or I'm sorry, than Gavin Newsom's podcast does. So whether he's amplifying them or not, they are reaching tens of millions of people. I think dialogue in general is good, but you need to call out factual errors. And I'd say on the platforming idea, because we get onto this with, you know, we shouldn't normalize Trump, should we platform him? The American public did. And if the mainstream media gatekeeper said, let's not give him a microphone ever again, he would still reach people. I loved when Gavin Newsom debated Ron DeSantis on Fox News. I thought it was one of the most thoughtful, responsible, respectable debates that it actually was the best debate of this last election cycle, in my opinion.
Where is this? Where is
on
he?
both sides, I thought DeSantis made good points. I thought Newsom did, and I thought it was more substantive than we saw in the presidential race. And finally, I'd say this. You're right. Democrats do not, or Republicans don't own the podcast space. Joe Rogan started as a Bernie bro, but he over time became a MAGA type. Conversation, dialogue, and having conversations that are open-minded, I think, are the way that you win people.
I suspect Joe Rogan thought
in a funny way,
more money
and
that
part
way.
of the problem is that, you know, we always say that because we have those conversations. People assume that we believe whatever they believe that we believe. But do you know what I mean?
No.
Well, because
Help me out
people believe that they know everything I think and believe.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't.
They don't, no.
You know?
Of course not.
But one of the ways that you learn what people believe is to hear them talk. One of the things that people would love to see is people always say, you should take The View off television. You know why? Because we give you an opportunity. We don't tell you what to think. We say, this is what I think.
Right.
You know, Alyssa will say, this is what I think. Joy says, this is what I think. We all, and when we do that, that is how you have the dialogue. It's not personal. You know, sometimes somebody will say, well, that shirt looks a little tight on you, Whoopi. But that's not a bad thing. You know, it's not a bad thing. But it becomes an awful thing when people become personal about you or your family.
Yeah.
See, that's the difference. We don't do that here. Other people do it to us and would like to think that that's what we're doing to them, but we're not. We're just trying to tell you what.
Pocahontas is personal.
It is. That's my point.
Yeah.
It is
That's my
personal.
point. You can't get out there calling names. Name calling is not okay. And Gavin should know better. Maybe we should send him the clip from yesterday, where you can see what it looks like when somebody defends a colleague
Yes, Keating.
from an attack.
Oh, yeah.
It was a great
defending
clip. If you didn't see
McBride.
it, look it up.